I'll start with a question that most people never stop to ask. What if healing doesn't make an empath easier to be around? What if the strongest sign that an empath has truly healed is the very reason some people begin to pull away? For years, the world has repeated the same comforting story. A healed empath becomes endlessly patient, endlessly forgiving, always available, always understanding, always willing to carry the emotions of everyone around them. It sounds beautiful, but it leaves out one life-changing truth. Real healing doesn't create a person who says yes to everything. It creates someone who finally knows when to say no, and that single change can completely transform every relationship they have. Friends become confused. Family members notice a difference they cannot explain. People who once depended on the empath's endless kindness suddenly feel distance where there used to be unlimited access. At first, it looks like the empath has changed for the worse. But beneath the surface, a far deeper transformation is taking place. One that psychology is beginning to understand more clearly, yet one that many people still misunderstand. The most surprising part is that healed empaths do not lose their compassion. They simply stop abandoning themselves in order to prove they care. That quiet shift changes everything. It changes how they listen, how they love, how they respond to conflict, and even how they experience peace. Many people spend years chasing healing without realizing what healing actually looks like. They expect constant happiness. They expect perfect emotional balance. They expect every painful memory to disappear. But genuine emotional healing is far more complex, and in many ways far more powerful than those simple ideas suggest. It rewires the way an empath sees themselves and the world around them. It replaces guilt with clarity, fear with confidence, emotional chaos with calm awareness. Yet these changes often remain invisible to everyone except the empath who has lived through them. That is why healed empaths are so frequently most misunderstood. People notice the new boundaries, but they rarely notice the quiet strength behind those boundaries. They notice the silence, but they fail to recognize the peace that silence protects. They notice the distance, but they overlook the self-respect that finally replaced years of emotional exhaustion. Throughout this video, you will uncover what a healed empath really becomes, why healing often surprises the people around them, and why many of the qualities that look cold on the outside are actually signs of deep emotional growth. You'll discover the hidden difference between empathy and self-sacrifice, why people-pleasing fades after true healing, how emotional boundaries strengthen rather than weaken compassion, and why the healthiest empath in the room is often the quietest one. By the end, you may see healing through an entirely different lens, and perhaps even recognize parts of your own journey that never made sense until now. Some of the most important transformations happen so gradually that they are almost impossible to notice until everything has already changed. Those are the changes we are exploring today. Welcome to the channel, where we dive deep into psychology, emotional intelligence, and the hidden patterns that shape human behavior. If you enjoy thoughtful content that helps you better understand yourself and the people around you, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Because the insights in this video could completely change the way you think about what it truly means to be a healed empath. The greatest misunderstanding about healing begins with a beautiful idea that sounds comforting but is often far from reality. Many people believe that once an empath heals, they become endlessly calm, endlessly patient, and endlessly available. They picture someone who smiles through every disappointment, forgives every mistake, and welcomes everyone with open arms no matter how they are treated. It is an image that has been repeated so often that many empaths start believing it themselves. They assume healing means becoming better at tolerating pain, better at carrying other people's burdens, better at sacrificing their own needs for the happiness of those around them. But genuine healing moves in a completely different direction. It does not teach an empath to carry more. It teaches them what no longer belongs on their shoulders. That single lesson changes everything. Healing does not erase compassion. It simply removes the belief that love requires self-sacrifice. A healed empath still notices pain. They still care deeply when someone is struggling. They still feel concern when a friend is hurting or a family member is overwhelmed. The difference is that they no longer believe another person's emotional state is their personal responsibility. Before healing, an empath often feels guilty for emotions they never created. If someone is upset, they rush to fix it. If someone is angry, They search for ways to calm the situation. If someone is disappointed, they immediately wonder what they did wrong. Their nervous system stays on constant alert, scanning every room and every conversation for emotional danger. It becomes exhausting because they are trying to manage feelings that never truly belong to them in the first place. This is where healing begins to surprise everyone around them. The people who benefited from the empath's old habits often feel uncomfortable when those habits disappear. A friend who was used to endless emotional support suddenly hears the empath say they need rest. A family member who expected instant reassurance discovers the empath is no longer available every hour of the day. A partner who relied on guilt to get their way realizes those emotional tactics no longer work. From the outside, it may appear that the empath has become distant or less caring. In reality, they have simply stopped abandoning themselves to make everyone else comfortable. That change can feel threatening to people who grew accustomed to unlimited access. The relationship has not become less loving. It has become healthier. Healing changes identity far more than personality. The empath does not become someone else. They become more fully themselves. Their kindness remains. Their compassion remains. Their ability to understand others remains. What disappears is the version of themselves built around fear, guilt, and constant approval. The quiet person may still be quiet. The gentle person may still be gentle. But beneath that familiar personality is an entirely different foundation, one built on self-respect instead of self-neglect. One of the biggest shifts happens in the way healed empaths experience emotions. Before healing, emotional absorption feels almost automatic. They walk into a room where people are tense, and within minutes their own mood changes. They speak to someone carrying anxiety, and suddenly their own chest feels heavy. They spend time with someone who is angry, and they carry that anger long after the conversation has ended. Many empaths believe this is simply who they are. They think feeling everything is proof of their gift. Yet emotional absorption often has less to do with extraordinary sensitivity and more to do with weak emotional boundaries. An unhealed empath struggles to separate their own emotions from those of others. Every feeling enters without permission. Every emotional wave pulls them under. Over time, they lose sight of where another person's pain ends and their own begins. This creates confusion because they spend years carrying emotional weight that was never theirs to hold. Healing introduces a completely different skill. Instead of absorbing every emotion, they begin observing it. They notice sadness without becoming sadness. They recognize anger without allowing it to take control of their inner world. They acknowledge another person's fear without making it their own responsibility to remove it. This change is quiet, but it is one of the greatest forms of emotional freedom. They no longer leave every conversation exhausted. They no longer spend hours recovering from emotions they accidentally collected throughout the day. They begin protecting their emotional energy with the same care they once reserved only for other people. Compassion remains, but emotional ownership changes completely. As this transformation continues, another deeply rooted habit starts to disappear. Many empaths build their identity around being the rescuer. They believe their value comes from solving problems. If someone is broken, they feel responsible for putting the pieces back together. If someone is struggling, they immediately search for answers. Love slowly becomes connected to fixing, saving, and sacrificing. This pattern usually develops much earlier than people realize. Many empaths grow up in environments where peace depended on their ability to comfort others. They learn to monitor moods before they learn to understand their own. They discovered that being helpful earned approval while expressing their own needs sometimes led to conflict, rejection, or disappointment. Over time, helping stopped being a kind choice and became a survival strategy. Trauma, guilt, and fear quietly shaped an identity that always placed other people first. Healing begins to untangle that belief. The empath starts asking a question they rarely asked before. Is this actually my responsibility? That simple question changes countless relationships. They stop rushing to solve every crisis. They stop believing every problem requires their immediate attention. They discover that supporting someone is very different from carrying someone's entire life on their shoulders. Helping becomes an act of generosity instead of an emotional obligation. They offer support when it is healthy, not because guilt demands it. They understand that some people only grow when they are allowed to face the consequences of their own choices. Saving everyone often prevents real growth, both for the rescuer and the person being rescued. As healing deepens, people-pleasing slowly begins to lose its power. Before healing, approval often feels like emotional survival. Saying yes feels safer than saying no. Agreeing feels easier than creating conflict. Many empaths become experts at reading expectations before anyone even speaks. They know exactly what others want, and they quickly shape themselves to fit those expectations. On the surface, this looks like kindness. Beneath the surface, it is often driven by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of disappointing someone they care about. Every decision becomes filtered through one question. Will this upset someone? Healing replaces that question with a healthier one. Is this honest? That shift creates enormous freedom. The healed empath understands that honesty is sometimes uncomfortable. Healthy boundaries are not always welcomed. Some people will become frustrated when they can no longer control the empath through guilt or emotional pressure. Others may accuse them of changing. In many ways, they are right. The empath has changed, but not in the way they assume. They have stopped measuring their worth by how pleased everyone else feels. They begin accepting a difficult truth. Disappointing people is sometimes the cost of protecting your own well-being. That realization removes an enormous emotional burden. Instead of chasing approval, they begin choosing authenticity. Instead of constantly avoiding conflict, they learn that respectful disagreement is part of every healthy relationship. One of the quietest yet most meaningful changes appears in their silence. Before healing, silence often carried hidden pain. It was the silence of emotional exhaustion after giving too much. It was the silence of avoiding difficult conversations because they feared upsetting someone. It was the silence of feeling overwhelmed but not knowing how to ask for help. Their quiet moments were filled with anxiety, overthinking, and emotional fatigue. After healing, silence begins to mean something entirely different. It becomes a place of restoration instead of escape. They no longer disappear because they are emotionally drowning. They step back because they understand the value of protecting their peace. Their silence is no longer punishment. It is no longer withdrawal driven by fear. It becomes intentional. They learn that every message does not require an immediate reply. Every disagreement does not require endless explanation. Every misunderstanding does not demand a defense. They become comfortable sitting with their thoughts before reacting. This is the difference between isolation and emotional regulation. Isolation grows from fear, loneliness, and emotional pain. Emotional regulation grows from awareness, wisdom, and self-control. From the outside, both can look similar because both involve stepping away. But inside, they are completely different experiences. One is an attempt to escape overwhelming emotions. The other is a conscious decision to protect emotional balance while remaining deeply connected to who they truly are. One of the quietest signs of healing is that an empath slowly stops feeling the need to explain every decision they make. Before healing, even the smallest choice often comes with a long explanation. They apologize before saying no. They justify taking time for themselves. They carefully describe their reasons, hoping everyone will understand. Deep inside, this habit is rarely about being polite. It is about seeking reassurance. It grows from the fear that being misunderstood means being rejected. Many empaths spend years believing that if they can only explain themselves well enough, every conflict will disappear. They think the right words can make everyone see their heart, but life does not work that way. Some people misunderstand because they simply see the world differently. Others misunderstand because it benefits them to do so. Healing brings an important realization. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Not every opinion deserves an answer. A healed empath begins to trust that their actions can speak more clearly than endless explanations ever could. They become comfortable with the fact that some people will never fully understand their choices, and that no amount of explaining will change that. This is not arrogance. It is quiet confidence. They stop trying to convince everyone that they are kind, honest, or caring. They simply live according to those values. The energy once spent defending themselves is now used to protect their peace. This same confidence changes the way they listen to themselves. Before healing, many empaths struggle to tell the difference between intuition and anxiety. Both can feel powerful. Both create strong emotional reactions. Anxiety often demands immediate action. It whispers that something terrible is about to happen. It pushes the mind into endless what-if questions and keeps the body tense and alert. Intuition feels very different, even though it is often mistaken for fear. It is usually quiet. It does not shout. It does not create panic. It offers a calm inner signal that asks for attention rather than immediate reaction. An unhealed empath may confuse every uncomfortable feeling with intuition and make decisions based on fear. They may avoid healthy opportunities because anxiety convinces them that danger is everywhere. Healing slowly teaches discernment. Instead of reacting the moment an emotion appears, they learn to pause. They observe what they are feeling without rushing to label it. They reflect before making a decision. They ask whether the feeling comes from an old wound or from genuine awareness. This simple pause changes everything. Their choices become less impulsive. Their relationships become more balanced. Their emotions no longer control every decision. They begin responding instead of reacting. And that creates a steady sense of emotional stability that was once impossible to imagine. As these inner changes continue, relationships naturally begin to shift. This is often one of the hardest parts of healing because it affects the people closest to the empath. Some friendships quietly fade away. Some family relationships become uncomfortable. Some romantic partnerships begin to struggle in unexpected ways. At first, it is tempting to believe that healing has damaged these connections, but the opposite is often true. Healing shines a light on patterns that were hidden for years. A friendship built entirely on one person giving, and the other constantly receiving becomes difficult to maintain. A family dynamic that depended on guilt or emotional pressure begins to lose its influence. A romantic relationship that survived because one partner ignored their own needs suddenly faces a new reality. These changes are painful, but they reveal something important. Healthy relationships adapt and grow when both people respect each other's boundaries. Unhealthy relationships often resist change because they were built on unhealthy expectations. This is why healed empaths sometimes notice that emotionally healthy people become even closer to them. Those people appreciate honesty. They respect boundaries. They feel safe because the relationship is built on trust rather than obligation. On the other hand, people who relied on manipulation, guilt, or constant emotional control often begin to drift away. They may complain that the empath has become distant, selfish, or different. In truth, what has disappeared is not kindness. It is unhealthy access. The greatest transformation is not found in any single habit. It is found in one powerful shift in perspective. An unhealed empath spends much of life asking, "How can I make everyone happy?" Almost every decision grows from that question. Their mood depends on the emotions of the people around them. Their peace depends on whether others approve of them. Their identity becomes tied to keeping everyone comfortable, even when it comes at the cost of their own well-being. Healing quietly replaces that question with a new one. What helps me remain emotionally healthy? At first, this can feel uncomfortable. Years of people-pleasing often make self-care seem selfish. But emotional maturity teaches a different lesson. Taking care of yourself is not an act against other people. It is what allows genuine kindness to exist without resentment or exhaustion. A healed empath still gives, still loves, and still supports others. But those actions come from freedom rather than fear. Their compassion becomes intentional instead of automatic. They choose when to help because they truly want to, not because guilt leaves them feeling they have no other option. This leads to the deepest realization of all. Many people believe the strongest empath is the one who feels everything, the one who absorbs every emotion in the room, the one who carries everyone's pain without complaint. Yet true emotional strength looks very different. The most powerful empath is not the one who loses themselves inside another person's emotions. It is the one who can recognize where their own emotional world ends and someone else's begins. They understand that empathy does not require emotional sacrifice. They can stand beside someone who is hurting without drowning in that hurt themselves. They can offer comfort without giving away their own peace. They can love deeply while remaining grounded in who they are. Their sensitivity has not disappeared. It has gained direction. Their compassion has not become smaller. It has become wiser. Their heart remains open, but it is no longer unprotected. That quiet balance is where healing reaches its fullest expression, transforming empathy from a burden into one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. By now, one truth should be clear. Healing does not take empathy away. It teaches empathy where to live. It ends the habit of abandoning yourself just to keep everyone else comfortable. It replaces emotional chaos with inner peace. It shows that boundaries are not walls built to push people away. They are quiet acts of self-respect that allow compassion to grow without turning into exhaustion. A healed empath still listens with an open heart. They still care when others are hurting. They still offer kindness, support, and understanding. The difference is that they no longer lose themselves while doing it. They no longer measure their worth by how much they can endure or how many people they can save. Instead, they understand that protecting their own emotional well-being is what allows them to love in a healthier, stronger, and more genuine way. This is why a healed empath often seems so different to the people around them. They smile without pretending. They help without sacrificing themselves. They forgive without allowing repeated harm. They choose peace over constant drama, honesty over people-pleasing, and self-respect over endless approval. To those who truly love them, this transformation is inspiring. To those who benefited from their lack of boundaries, it can feel confusing. But real healing has never been about becoming easier for everyone else. It has always been about becoming whole within yourself. If you found yourself reflected in today's video, then perhaps your own healing journey has already begun. Maybe you've started saying no without guilt. Maybe you've stopped carrying emotions that were never yours. Maybe you're finally discovering that your sensitivity is not your weakness. It is one of your greatest strengths when it is guided by wisdom instead of fear. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this video gave you a new perspective or helped you understand yourself a little better, please take a moment to like this video. It helps this message reach more people who may need it today. Subscribe to the channel for more deep insights into psychology, emotional intelligence, and personal growth. And don't forget to share this video with someone who is learning to protect their peace without losing their kindness. You never know which conversation, which idea, or which single video might become the turning point in someone's life. Until next time, remember this. The strongest empath is not the one who carries everyone's pain. The strongest empath is the one who has finally learned to carry their own heart with wisdom, protect it with courage, and share it with the world without ever losing themselves again.